Six-figure income with Scrum and no experience required? And it's even a real thing. In this case, it's not you who is getting scammed. Hi, I'm Michael. I'm an enterprise coach and have accompanied hundreds of teams in adopting better ways of working, helping them improve significantly, both by adopting agile ways of working and helping them fix stuff other practitioners had broken. Let's take a look at this advertisement I found on LinkedIn. Become a Scrum Master with no prior experience and earn up to £500 a day. Wow! No prior experience with an alluring £500 a day. Now the obvious question, can this be for real? Yes. You can earn that kind of money as a Scrum Master, and yes, there are even Scrum Masters who are making this kind of money without any kind of prior experience. But I believe that these Scrum Masters are the reason why Agile coaching is increasingly held in contempt with software professionals. And since this kind of thing is not an individual case, but rather an industry trend, it hurts the credibility of Scrum and Agile as a whole. Companies pay big money in the belief that they're doing the right thing, but in the end, they just get a bottle of snake oil and quite often a mess to clean up afterwards. But let's start from the beginning. Now, while it's possible for a Scrum Master to do their job without any prior experience, it would be challenging and most likely won't result in an effective Scrum. The price of a Scrum Master's inexperience is paid by the entire team and the organization. And that's why I consider it quite problematic for a professional Agile coach, such as in this advertisement, to not only suggest this as a viable option, but to actively promote it. A Scrum Master plays a crucial role in facilitating Scrum and ensuring that Scrum is actually a help rather than just another process. In their role, they need to act as a coach and mentor to the team, helping them understand and apply the Scrum framework optimally in their context. Without any experience or knowledge of what they coach and mentor when they are coaching Scrum, a Scrum Master will find it hard to meet these responsibilities adequately. A Scrum Master requires a lot of skills such as facilitation, conflict resolution, and leadership, which can't be learned in a classroom. They're developed through years of experience and practice, so it would be difficult for someone without any prior experience to effectively apply them. There are some things which I expect a Scrum Master to bring to the table in order to justify their paycheck. If you can't do these things, you are not qualified for your job. And if you happen to have such a Scrum Master who can't, well, then you need to have a serious talk. The Scrum Master is accountable for the performance of the team. And if they can't bear this accountability, maybe they're the wrong person. Let's just take a quick look at the Scrum Guide's description of the Scrum Master. The general description is the Scrum Master is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the guide. They do this by helping everyone understand Scrum theory and practice, both within the Scrum team and the organization. That's only possible if they understand what Scrum means in practice. And if you've only ever been in a classroom and have had a few coaching sessions, how could you? And you need to have worked with teams and with organizations before. You need to know what works and what doesn't. If you can only talk about theory and not practice, you're only doing half your job. The Scrum Master is accountable for the team's effectiveness. And I really like to say that a good Scrum Master is able to make a team at least 10, 20, 30% more effective depending on where the team started. So if the Scrum Master is arriving and you're not seeing any change to the effectiveness of your team, then the Scrum Master is not doing the one thing they're accountable for. Who cares what our meetings are? Who cares whether we do our retrospectives and daily according to the guide? It doesn't matter if the team is not improving in their effectiveness. We're not achieving anything if the team is not becoming more effective. That's the measurement standard for every Scrum Master. How do you do this if you've never done anything even remotely similar before? And then it goes on to say they do this by enabling the Scrum team to improve its practices within the Scrum framework. How do you know how to improve current practices within the Scrum framework if you've not done this? I see a lot of Scrum Masters. They know a few retrospective templates, they can introduce story points, they'll give some instructions how to run a daily, and they just do this by the book. But that is merely imposing new practices on a team rather than helping the team improve their practices within the framework. Scrum has very little to say on which practices we need to use, except we should improve our practices. And if we only have a few practices from the book, we can't do this. Scrum Masters are true leaders who serve the Scrum team and the larger organization. That means as a Scrum Master, you're not only responsible for managing a team, otherwise it would be called a team lead role or maybe even a development manager, delivery manager. We see those roles, that's totally okay, but they are not Scrum Master roles. The Scrum Master needs to be a leader, and that means you need to have leadership experience. You must have worked with people before. You must know how to lead people and what works in leading people and how to deal with difficult situations in your interactions with people. If you have no experience in this, I think that going in a role that makes this one a key for your success is a little bit of a hard thing. And then we have three core services of the Scrum Master. The first is the service to the team. The Scrum Master serves the Scrum team in several ways, including coaching the team members in self-management and cross-functionality. Have you done this before? If you've never done this, what are you talking about? What kind of practice can you refer back to? Helping the Scrum team focus on creating high-value increments that meet the definition of done. Have you seen a definition of done in practice? Have you worked with one? What's a good definition of done? What's a bad definition of done? What could work for your team? What's most likely not going to work? How do you make sure that the team is not just working off backlog items, but delivering high-value increments? How would you know the difference if you've never done this before? Causing the removal of impediments to the team's progress. Causing. That means you're working with people and the organizational system to make impediments disappear. It doesn't mean you're running around and solving problems for the teams. But how do you do this? How do you exert influence properly without constantly making yourself a bottleneck? Have you done this? Ensuring that all Scrum events take place and are positive, productive, and kept within a time box. I like the order here, positive, productive, and within a time box. So we should be getting something, we need to get some results out of it. And we need to do this in a concise manner. If you've never run a Scrum event before, the first thing you will usually encounter is that people don't even know what's expected from them, what's a good Scrum event, what's not a good Scrum event. You may not even know what you need to do so that the Scrum event doesn't turn into a routine meeting that team members disdain because they feel it's wasting their time. You need to have some experience and you must know what works so that you can support your team in this way optimally. And that's just the first third of your responsibilities. Second is the service to the product owner, helping them find techniques for effective product goal definition and product Backlog management. Have you defined a product goal before? What's a good product goal? How do you know that this product goal is actually feasible? How would you sustain a product goal? How would you inspect and adapt it? How would you manage a product backlog? It sounds very straightforward. Yes, you just need to put items in an order. Any order is okay because some decision is better than indecision. But what's a good product backlog management technique? Helping the Scrum team understand the need for clear and concise backlog items. Where does this come from all of a sudden? Why is the Scrum team here with the product owner? Of course it is. I would say one of the things that I have experienced very often, we have a lot of backlog items. Sometimes they're just the traditional requirement or solution design document sliced into so-called user stories. And then some of them are like 6 weeks, some are 12 weeks, some are just a mess because they depend on 20 other items. We see those things all of the time. And we are not even able to say, this is how we separate those things out. What is the problem with that? Of course, the team can't deliver high-value increments when their backlog looks like that. But how do you change the situation? Have you worked with a backlog before? Helping establish empirical product planning for a complex environment. Yeah, let's not focus on a complex environment too much. I don't know your environment. But empirical product planning means that we don't know what happens tomorrow. We don't know what we learn by implementing the things we implement today. We assume that we are making the best possible decisions today, but we could be wrong. What does that mean? How do we make sure that we don't navigate ourselves in a corner? Have you developed a product before? You'll see this very often that a lot of the things we're doing in product management, they're just guesses. And the guesses have consequences. How do we deal with those consequences so that they don't kill our product? Facilitating stakeholder collaboration as requested or needed. In corporate environments, I see very often that requirements are just thrown over the fence, and we don't do that thing in Scrum. It's a collaborative process. How do you collaborate with your stakeholders, especially when they have been used to a decade or more of throwing requirements over the fence? Things need to change. What is their part in the process now? Which interactions help, which don't? Which make the product owner's life harder, which make the product owner's life better? Services to the organization. The Scrum Master serves the organization in several ways, including leading, training, and coaching the organization in its Scrum adoption. If you really believe that if you had 2 or 3 days of Scrum training and that qualifies you to lead and train and coach others in Scrum, I think the bar for what you believe a Scrum trainer has to know and understand must be pretty low. Why don't you try going to Scrum Org or Scrum Alliance and apply as a Scrum trainer if that's all it takes? No experience. I would be very interested in the response that you get for your application if you try that. And why should an organization that has never done Scrum before have a lower need to understand what this means in practice? And if you just attend a public training or when the organization gets a professional trainer, what is the thing they need? Is it really something you can provide? Planning and advising Scrum implementations within the organization. Have you ever planned or supported the planning process of anything? I'm not saying traditional project management, but have you supported a planning initiative at a strategic level before? That's your responsibility as a Scrum Master. Helping employees and stakeholders understand and enact an empirical approach for complex work and removing barriers between stakeholders and Scrum teams. So you need to understand empiricism. You must be able to turn empiricism into action. And you must be able to bring people who are potentially in deep conflict, who have animosities, resentments against one another together. So you need a lot of diplomatic skill. Have you done this before? Where's your experience? And now all of that is just really skimming the surface because that's just what the guide says. I'm also a huge fan of the coaching competencies framework, which I'm not going to dig deeper into, and I usually expect the Scrum Master to bring at least 5 competencies to the table to even be considered for the role. Yes, as a consequence, that means I don't think there's such a thing as a junior Scrum Master, just like there's no such thing as a junior CIO. If you don't have what it takes to do the job, you need to take a different role first, learn, get some mentoring, and then as you have some experience, you may be ready to make the jump. But no experience? Never. That hurts your team. It hurts your company, the reputation of Scrum, and the credibility of people who did put in the time to learn and get the experience. And people who believe it's okay to do this just to make a quick buck are, in my opinion, definitely the wrong people for the role. As a Scrum Master, I expect that the Scrum value, courage, commitment, openness, focus, respect, and the basis of trust are there. And I believe that we are violating these things, so you can't even be a pattern. If you do that and violate those things, you're a scam master, not a Scrum Master. Let me summarize this one. Scrum Masters need experience. In your organization, if you have the choice, you should avoid Scrum Masters without experience and avoid so-called agile coaches who try to sell you services based on the idea that Scrum Masters without experiences are okay. And definitely avoid buying Scrum-related services from companies who openly proclaim that a Scrum Master requires no prior experience. Scrum Master competence is one of the most important ingredients for a successful Scrum, and experience is a critical component of competence.